Once our key poses are set, we can move on to the breakdown poses. First, let's select all the controls, and now we can retime our key poses. Shift-select the keyframe of our happy pose on frame 2 and move to frame 16. As we did many times before, this is another animation piece where we don't have anything happening before or after it because this isn't part of a sequence, so we need to have a hold at the beginning of it and at the end. The hold can take between 6 to 8 frames, or even longer if you need to. So with everything still selected, let's go to frame 8 and hit the S key here. This time, we didn't actually need to copy the pose from frame 1 because we've been working in a stepped mode. So unless we reach another keyframe, which in our case the other keyframe is on frame 16, doesn't really matter where we create a new key. It will have the same values of a previous pose. In this case, our previous pose was on frame 1. So when we hit the S on frame 8, we are able to save the exact same pose that we have on frame 1. Alright, so we have our hold of 8 frames at the beginning. Then, in another 8 frames, we change the pose from sad to happy. Now we need to create an overshoot pose before the final pose. Let's save another keyframe of the current pose on frame 22. And now we change the pose that we have on frame 16 to an overshoot pose. All we need to do is move everything and rotate all the parts into the direction that it was already going to. So basically, we need to push everything further in all directions. So we need to rotate the chest further to the right and further to the back. Same with the head. Let's rotate the hips further up to the back. Bring the right side higher. It doesn't need to be extreme, but we need to feel the difference. So let's bring the weight further to the front. We can also bring the arms a bit further to the back. We bring more tension to the hands by straightening out the elbows. Just be careful and don't break the elbows by rotating them to the opposite side. The hand can bend further to the back. Don't forget the fingers and the thumb. Just bring everything further towards where it was already going to. Bring more tension to every part of the body. We can even bring the weight up. But in that case, pay attention to the feet. If they're no longer touching the ground, we need to lift the heels up by using the foot roll channel. We now have our overshoot pose, and you can see the difference that we've made between the poses. These are our 3 main poses, so now we can go even deeper in between these poses and create an extreme down pose on frame 12, which is the middle between the low sad pose and an overshoot happy pose. So, in 4 frames on frame 12, let's select everything and hit the S. Just as we've used the happy final pose for our overshoot pose and brought everything further up, we can use this sad pose and bring everything lower. Push everything to the opposite direction than the upcoming action will be going in to create an anticipation pose. And because later the whole body will be going up, in the anticipation pose we need to bring everything down. So let's lower everything and give more weight to the pose. Rotate the hip and chest. bring the weight down, we want our head to be hanging really low. We want to rotate all the parts to the opposite direction than in the happy pose. Position the center of the body more to the back and to the left. We need our hands to start rotating in towards the center of the body, so rotate the wrists as well as the shoulders to bring the arms closer to each other. And in front of the body before they start lifting up, the elbows should be facing out. Here we have our hand going too far into the leg, so we need to be careful. Check for these situations when scrubbing through the animation frame by frame and fix it. Before I started animating this pose transition, I had actually created a reference video of myself going from the sad pose to happy. So I filmed this motion, and that way I know exactly how the arms would be moving. Otherwise, it would be really difficult to tell what path the arms could be taking, and sometimes if you try to imagine these things, you end up with a not convincing animation, even if it has a nice flow. So I really invite you to either find some reference or create it yourself for your animation pieces. Here we have our finished extreme down pose. You can compare it with the first pose and then go over the poses to see our character's movement. So he starts low and goes even lower before he goes up, overshoots the final pose, and then settles on frame 22. Finally, we need to create one more pose, which will be a slow in or a cushion into our last frame, and that will create a moving hold for the audience, letting them have a moment in order to catch all the details that are happening before the end. So just as we have a hold at the beginning, we'll have a hold at the end, but it will be a moving hold, and that way our motion won't feel like it came to a stop too abruptly. The way to create this moving hold is to save our current last pose on the last frame, so that we have two same poses on frame 22 and frame 32. Then we need to open up the graph editor, and with all the controls being selected, delete the key on frame 22. Then select all the keys from frame 16 to 32 and create a linear curve by clicking this icon. Now we have our character going at a constant speed from its overshoot pose to a settle. So on frame 30, we can hit the S and save a new pose, which looks almost identical to the last pose. Then shift-select it and move it back to frame 22. Here we have our settle pose back on frame 22, which looks almost the same way as it was before, but has a tiny difference from the last pose, which is on frame 32, and that way creates a moving hold. Now we can go back to the stepped mode, so select all the keys again from frame 16 to frame 32 and hit this button to create stepped tangents. Even though we've chosen the stepped mode again, here I've noticed when scrubbing the animation that we have some movement left, which we shouldn't have. So in order to fix this bug, we can save a pose which is on frame 17, select everything again, and click on the stepped option. Now when we scrub the animation from frame 17 to 22, we no longer have any movement. So hopefully, if we delete the pose which we've just created, we'll have our problem fixed and won't have any motion left between those keyframes. Finally, by using the comma and period keys, we can go over the keyframes and check all the poses. So from frame 1 to 8, we have a hold. Then we have our extreme down pose, which is anticipation. Then we have an overshoot pose, or extreme up. Then we settle, and finally we have our cushion. These are our main storytelling poses. In the next lesson, we'll start going in between those poses straight ahead, adding some overlap.